fool. Now your soul is forfeit.
Episode 3 of The Legend of Vox Machina takes a hard, heavy turn. As always, this is your only warning. This video will contain spoilers for episode 3 of Legend of Vox Machina and potential spoilers for Critical Role Campaign 1 entirely. If you haven't watched either of them, go watch them, then come back. This week's episode started off with a horrific, gut-wrenching nightmare that Percy seems to have relatively often, and it showcases flashbacks of his life as a child in Whitestone and these really nice moments with his whole family in the living room, having fun, playing, having jokes, and then slowly transitioning into more horror themes of his entire family being killed and murdered while he is escaping and then being all on his own. And it really sets the tone for what we're about to get, and I am all for it. I love horror themed things. I love gothic horror. I love gory things. This was a great opening for the actual arc of the Briarwoods. Vox Machina are invited to a very important dinner, and this is where other dignitaries from around have come and gathered to speak of safety on the realm based on the recent Blue Dragon attack. Now, before the dinner, we do get a look at the keep, and it is a beautiful rundown building, and it looks as if though Keyleth has used druidcraft to either hold certain structural things together or is really just trying to spruce up and make the place look a little bit nicer. There is a moment where they unfortunately struggle to open their own door from within their own keep when Allura arrives, and I think that is hilarious. Percy promises Allura that he will make sure that everyone else is on their best behavior during the ball, which I believe is a line that Tiberius was actually running during the live stream, whereas now it makes sense that it's just Percy doing it, and Percy has all of the attributes to be able to take on that exact role and that exact line for the animated series. The party scene is spectacular. They show up, and it's great to see this animated where they have got all of their fine clothing ready. Scanlan obviously sporting the codpiece that he purchased, and they also animated the curtsy that Grog was taught as a way to show respect to those around them, which I think is really funny, and it just brought up all these great laughing moments that I just totally forgot about because so much happens in the show. So Grog, the Grand Poobah, is back, and I just think it's amazing. I bet Travis is really happy, though, that he didn't have to voice act the actual shopping scenes that took place before the ball. Once they enter, did you see the Matt Mercer NPC drop at the coat room where they checked in all of their weapons? Which, I love it. It's a thing. I'm guaranteed there's going to be a Matt Mercer NPC in every single episode, and now it is our job to find out where they all are. Now, I really was worried that this episode may actually be a little bit boring, only because usually dinner scenes can be quite long and sometimes they aren't as entertaining as you would expect. However, they really got the timing right with this, and it's probably because the team behind creating the script and the actual scenes themselves, they had a lot of source material to go on. I would be very surprised if people working on this show hadn't watched the necessary episodes to then recreate. And so the actual dinner scene, the actual party scene is fantastic. I love watching Percy walk around, already excited to just be amongst nobility again. But then as soon as the Briarwoods from Whitestone are called upon their entrance, he immediately just shuts down and changes completely. Reaching for his weapon, it just reminded me how much pain these two people have actually put him through. And then he goes off to tell the group, very Taliesin Jaffe, small bits of information about how they took everything from him, but nothing more than that. And I believe that actually is a line from the actual live stream series. They all gather together, and this is almost word for word the conversation where Vax discusses going off and sneaking out on his own to investigate the Briarwoods chambers and to see if he can dig anything up, which he does. Now, this all happens in tandem with the dinner, which again, I really like being able to see the two worlds happening at the same time. From a DM's perspective, it's really great because then you can explain that better when you're running for your group. Now, Vax does a fantastic job of showing us how you can stealth in an open hallway with a guard by mirroring the guard's steps and then turning as the guard turns. I think that's fantastic because one of the hardest things about being a rogue, and don't get me wrong, being a rogue is relatively easy. They have a lot of things they can do. But one of the hardest things is well, if there's nothing to hide behind, why, well, I guess I can't do it. It's like, oh, but there are ways. And I'm definitely going to use this in my future games as a rogue and allow it as a DM. As a side note, we also get to see Belt Snake Simon, which I am so happy they kept him in. He's not even that important in the entire story, but it's just cool that Vax has a snake that is a magical belt at the same time. You don't even need to explain it. Meanwhile, the dinner continues, and the animated version of this is almost exactly like sitting at the table 5 years or 6 years ago back in Geek and Sundry's little hot sweaty room, because you have Percy, who is just completely shut down and is just staring down Lady Briarwood and Silas as well. And you could probably mirror this up, and I won't be surprised if somebody does. You could mirror up the animation of Percy staring down the Briarwoods with Taliesin at the table just staring down Matt. And I think, again, so good that they're using the source material in such a fascinating and fantastic way. The conversation continues, and eventually Percy is actually the one who ruins the entire dinner by snapping, because the Briarwoods are really pushing and prodding at the story of the Dorollos and slandering them right in front of Percy. And so, to his credit, he held it as long as he could, and then he snaps.
They abandoned their people to rot.
Liars!
I love the fact that they also kept the Jenga code word. I wasn't sure if copyright would allow them not to use it for some reason. I'm really glad that wasn't the case. And again, sticking to just Jenga. Of all the words, Jenga. Scanlan coming in with a great line saying that Mummy is his safe word. I just think that's hilarious. Now, up in the room, we have some huge moments. Vax is flicking through a book that he found in a secret compartment in a chest that the Briarwoods have. And this is beyond the 2 seasons that we already know that we're getting, because we know that we're getting the Briarwoods, and then we know we're getting the Chroma Conclave arc. However, they're already setting up for future arcs, and we see, as he flicks through this book, a very quick note with a little bit of a skull next to it that says the Whispered One. And that just got me so excited, because all I want to see is the Vecna arc. I just cannot wait. It's going to be amazing. And realistically, I think they're going to get it. I don't see a reason as to why their show would get cancelled. It's already so popular. So I'm really happy that they're already seeding those things, because now it will make even more sense when we get up to that arc in, I don't know, however long it'll take, but we'll get there. Vax is then surrounded by the Briarwoods as they very quietly enter into their chambers. And this is a scene that I sort of wanted to be played out a bit longer. I remember it being longer when they were doing it live, and there was a lot more flirtatious things happening. However, I do enjoy the fact that Vax was still pointing out like, oh wow, you're such an attractive couple, and then being charmed and then bitten and then just gunning it out the window, and then falls into the water calling out Jenga. Now, in the original campaign, they had the magical earrings where they could all speak to each other, but obviously they're trying to move away from certain things, and so they have to replace certain moments with other moments. And their answer to this I actually love, and it's the fact that the twins have a connection. And it's kind of said in the world that twins have always had almost a sixth sense to be able to be connected with one another. So it makes perfect sense that as Vax falls and calls and just barely whispers Jenga, that Vex is the one who hears it or feels it and knows that her brother is in danger. The battle with the Briarwoods commences, and it is so good. It's almost exactly how it happened in the stream. I love that they immediately start taking out Pike, realizing that she's the healer, that she's the one that's giving magical aid to everyone. She gives Grog a magical weapon through her own spells, and that is a concentration spell. For a second there, I thought that we were going to get a Pike death, because she was attacked by Lady Briarwood, and this dark necrotic energy just spiked up right through her, breaking a concentration. I was like, oh wow, maybe this is how they're going to introduce this idea of a death scene for Pike and then the resurrection, which it didn't happen, but it was really close. There was a sweet moment with Vax calling Pike Pickle, which I love. I'm really glad they put that in. And then on top of that, we get Craven Edge. Craven Edge, I totally forgot about that entire sword. We get the animation of it drinking and sucking in Grog's blood with every strike, and then getting larger and larger and more powerful. And it just reminded me of, I cannot wait to see how that is going to affect the story later on. I mean, we know the story, but just actually seeing it animated changes everything. The entire scene was really well animated. I really enjoyed it. However, as we all know, the Briarwoods do get away, which is what then leads Vox Machina to head off to Whitestone to solve the problem. However, I forgot about Desmond. Oh, poor, sweet Desmond. Now, look, I felt the rage from Percy when the Briarwoods got away. I forgot what it was like. But I just felt the sadness for poor Desmond as Percy takes a step closer and closer, and this real horror theme begins to introduce itself back into the story as he pulls out the mask that he wears to almost transform into his patron, or this other side of himself, pulling out his gun and then just blasting off Desmond's fingers, calling out, demanding that he answer his questions. And then the ever faithful iconic line of "Your soul is now forfeit." I forgot how important that line was for this entire arc and for Percy's story. And to end with that was just beautiful. This episode set the tone for the rest of the Briarwood arc. Gothic horror. Perfectly dark, and once again, not apologizing for what it really is. This is an adult show. I'm giving this episode 3.5 out of 5 trinkets. This is the base level, the baseline of what I expect from each Vox Machina episode. The dinner wasn't too long. It was very well paced, plenty of action that didn't go over. It was all really well dedicated to the actual show itself, and I really felt like every single beat was hit for the episode. Sure enough, we will never be able to get every little detail from the actual streams. These are 30-minute episodes, but this definitely set the standard for the episodes moving forward, and there is so much more to come. This is barely a taste. So, what did you think of the latest episode of The Legend of Vox Machina? Comment down below your feelings and the things that you would like to see. And until next time, go roll some dice.